Hello and welcome to All Elite Morro. I just changed the thumbnail about 5 minutes ago because I think I got deadly at using Canva now. So, be looking forward to seeing people's thoughts on the new thumbnail style. Pretty cool. Says chat is disconnected. Why is it disconnected? If I refresh this, it's just gonna fuck everything up. Do I ask that question every week? Also, I changed my microphone settings. I basically copied some streamer guy whose stuff sounds cool. I've seen what he used. I just copied every bit of it into my own OBS. Does it sound better? You let me know. I can't hear jack shit. So yeah, hopefully the sound is better. I know it's been very low, but I have all sorts of noise suppression, noise gates, equalizers, stabilizers, all this kind of stuff. So let me know what the sound is like. I would like to know that. Yeah, welcome to All Elite Morro. A much quieter week in the wrestling world this week. Sounds great, JB says. Welcome, JB. How you doing? Ronan says, it's not a whisper. Okay. So, yeah, as I said, I copied some guy's settings. And hopefully that fixes the sound issues or the whispering issues we've been having. A few responses in today on the Instagram. Oshin Max says, pleasantly surprised that AEW are actually giving a women's blood and guts match a go. Yeah, deadly. Really excited for that. Do you know why? The main reason I'm excited for it is, what have they done now? Like 4 years of men's blood and guts? Was 2021 the first? 21, 22, 23, 24. I think they've done 4 men's blood and guts. And it just feels like this kind of tired formula if you keep going back to it around the same time every year. And not doing a men's one, but doing a women's one instead. Feels like it breaks up that formula a bit. And I think like that's something that's been driving me mad in WWE for the last number of years, is whenever they're doing a men's match of something, they feel like they have to do a women's and vice versa on the same show. So we get 2 elimination chambers, we get 2 War Games matches, we get 2 Royal Rumbles. And it's like, it just kills the... Like, watching 2 Royal Rumbles on the same night now, I find to be like such a trudge of a viewing experience. So I like the fact that they're just going to do one of them. David Ayers, welcome. How you doing, bud? All good. I was lifting a lot of boxes today and carrying them to a van, then moving them to a different location, a secure location, and then lifting them again, and I'm bollocksed after it. Drives me mad. So yeah, Oshin, that'll be class. And I think looking at the women involved, like Jamie Hayter and all those, they are going to go all out to try and make it super memorable. So yeah, I think the women's blood and guts is going to be very, very good. Jamie B, Jamie, says, haven't watched any this week as I watched old Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show videos trying to figure out the parameters. Best of luck with that, Jamie, because if we can't figure them out, I don't think anyone can figure them out. That's one of the things that we spoke about this, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what conversations the lads had before I came on board last year, but like one of the things we wanted the podcast to be was kind of organic. So we do really fuck all planning amongst ourselves. Like, we do a little bit. You know, we pick a topic and then we'll text back and forth about that topic. But like, we're not sitting down with like a rigid list and stuff like that. So we've never set parameters. And the parameters are, there are no parameters. So if you can figure out the parameters, please let me know. Marked Out says, people who think TNA have a shot at being the number 2 company need their heads checked. Yeah, we're going to get into that. That's topic number 1 tonight. Despite the fact I put Britt Baker on the thing, the main topic, because what image could I have used for... I noticed that these videos do better in the afterlife of the stream. So just like general views of people rewatching the stream later in the week, they do better with an image of an actual wrestler. So, like, what could I put up for TNA? Even though it's the lead topic, shall we say? Like, I was like, who do I put up? Moose? So I was like, nah, fuck it, go with Britt Baker. No planning at it shows. Thanks, Ronan. It's sort of like the amount of times we're talking about something, I'm like, I can kind of remember something related to this, but I'm afraid to say it because I could be totally wrong. Yeah, the parameters are loosely talk about the subject of the title video. Correct, Ev? Like, we come up with a subject, and then half the time we go miles off the topic anyway. Well, JB says the off the cuffness of the show is the best part of it. I think that kind of leads into a bit, like, it feels more organic, and it kind of fits the vibe of just a few lads talking shit about wrestling for an hour and a half, whatever it is. JB had a fabulous idea. Just put up Rhea Ripley, she gets the clicks. That is true. Maybe I should, like, really lean into the clickbait stuff. I was also thinking as well, what I might do is, from this stream, clip it into like 5-minute, like 2 or 3 5-minute segments to release as their own videos. Like, say, whatever we start with there, like the Britt Baker one, just release that on YouTube as a separate video. What I'd be hoping then is, over time, that would drive more traffic to the live stream. Like, if you're here, it's obviously not a thing that, if you don't, you'll have seen it already. But just release it as a separate video to try and capture more, you know, if you like, because if you end up there with it, here's a 5-minute Britt Baker video, here's a 5-minute can TNA be number 2 video, that might work. Afraid of John Martin correcting any mistakes. Yeah, that man, see, John Martin's memory, obviously his knowledge is incredible, but his memory is like, the guy is like Google. He just remembers everything. It's insane. And like, I forget shit all the time. I've been hit in the head a few times. So yeah, like, when John is just like, who's the memory man? Jimmy McGee was a commentator in Irish sport for years, and he was called the memory man. John Martin is the Jimmy McGee of professional wrestling. His memory is insane. And then, oh no, I've gone backwards on those. Marked out again. Most devastating news of the week was Vader getting injured. Mark, honest to God, like, next week's, or this week's, Total Extreme Morro video is a bit of a banger in my opinion. I'm doing a massive tournament. Like, I mean a massive, just shitloads of people in the tournament. And it does not go simply. Shit hits the fan again. I'm just like, what the fuck? So the Vader injury, and then I have me planning 32-man tournament booked, ready to go. Done over 8 weeks. The video is the first half of the tournament, the first 16 matches, and all sorts of shit goes wrong. And then I do the War Games at the end of it. So Total Extreme Morro coming Wednesday, the aftermath of Vader's injury. Clickbait headlines for short content. Irish podcaster shoots on Britt Baker. That's actually a really good idea. Just clickbait the shit out of it. To try and drive more traffic to the live stream. But then the other side of it is, the way the live stream works now is actually perfect, because if there was like even 10 or 15 more people in the chat at a time, it'd be really hard to keep up with, and I think like a lot of it would get lost and it'd become impersonal. You don't want that either. Cottle Cross says, never heard AEM sound so crisp. Yes. So Cottle, I was filling people in earlier. I copied some streamers' exact OBS sound settings. The video was titled make your microphone sound professional or some shit like that, because this is actually a decent, like, I had the old microphones, USB type one, and I upgraded to this one. It's pretty decent microphone, and it has all the, you know, the XLR cables and all that stuff, and I thought it'd just be a case of you plug it in and it's going to sound way better, and it did sound a little better, but obviously you have to get the settings right as well, and that's something that I don't know anything about. So yeah, good to hear we're sounding good. There's our kind of preamble. Let's get into TNA. What did you think of the TNA invasion of NXT? I think it's a really good idea. And like obviously this had to happen from the way the story's been told, and NXT talent constantly beating TNA talent for titles and all. So I thought it was a really good idea. But then when you're left with that closing image of the TNA guys stood in the ring, it's all failed ex-WWE guys. I'm like, use this opportunity to promote your roster. Jamie B is keeping the TEM for his parental leave in 10 days' time. Looking forward to what that's a binge it. Because there's hours of it out there by now. There's like 5 hours out there by now. That's Total Extreme Morrow, Wednesdays, 12:30. Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show. That's a great way to watch it. Now, yeah, so there's hours of content there now on that, and there's more coming this week. But best of luck with that, Jamie. So what did you think of the TNA invasion? It just, again, it was shot very sterile. It didn't feel like there was any mad danger. Like, don't get me wrong, I liked the overall idea. So Oshin says he liked it because unlike WCW one, TNA sent people that you could consider the face of the franchise, which made it feel more impactful. That is true as well, I suppose. That is true. Yeah, like the WCW one, obviously that roster was as dead as disco by that stage, and none of the main characters, we'll call them, were contractually available till like the following year. So you ended up with like the headliners being Booker T and Buff Bagwell, which, you know, I'd love Booker T and all. However, by the time he was, at the time he was coming in, he didn't feel like he was one of the main players, like a Hogan would have, like a Goldberg would have, because that's what people envisioned it an NXT or a WCW invasion to be. Whereas, like, I like the idea of the TNA invasion. I think it'll actually generate good numbers on TV. I think it'll cause a bit of excitement. I just felt that the way it was shot was very this should have been almost like the Shield showing up for the first time, or when Retribution debuted during the pandemic era and pulled the place apart. Like, that was a cool angle. I think they just didn't get the shooting of the angle right. And as Brian says there, TNA has a pretty poor crop of top guys at the minute. Yeah, it's not great. And this feeds into the kind of... I wanted to start with this because this feeds into the key question surrounding that we hear a lot of people talking about. And we hear this being amplified by a lot of wrestling podcasters and so-called wrestling media and so on. The idea of if TNA get a TV deal, that they'll be the number 2 wrestling company. That, in my opinion, is kind of a ludicrous assumption. And let's get into the reasons for that. Ronan says he thinks the PC, the Performance Center, is the problem with how NXT is shot. Agreed. It just looks crap. They've made it too glossy for the size of the place it is. Oshin says that, but that being said, I was all in to realize NXT versus TNA Invasion show has been used to counter program All Elite Title Tuesday. Yep. Yeah, this should be its own Saturday night PLE, if that's what WWE want to call those things. It should be a PLE. Yeah, I think Ronan is correct as well there on it's the location makes it hard for it to feel. Do you remember years ago when Full Sail, they kept it real dark and the setting was real simple and they didn't have any of these big glossy screens and stuff? It actually looked pretty cool. It looked kind of underground. But the PC doesn't, like Ron says there, Full Sail, it would work so much better. Like, the PC doesn't have the feel or the look that Full Sail had. I think that was a big problem with this. But this idea that's been amplified by the media being TNA becoming the number 2 company with a TV deal. Let's think about that for a minute. Realistically, where are they going to get this TV deal? The only realistic option in my mind would be the CW, which is what NXT has. Does anybody think that TNA are going to do better numbers on the CW than what NXT is doing. I don't think they're going to get anywhere near NXT numbers. NXT, regardless of what you think about it, has those 3 letters of WWE before it. So if they go Wednesday nights on the CW, they're not going to get near NXT numbers. Okay? That's the first problem. So NXT are getting paid somewhere between 20 to 30 million. I think in around the 25 mark per year for the numbers they're delivering for the CW. Look, the CW isn't a huge station, but you know, it does have a lot of reach. It's just not a massively popular TV station in the States. So TNA isn't going to get numbers like that. So how much are they going to get paid per year? Probably, I would say 10 million off the CW would be a pretty decent number for them. And like 10 million isn't nowhere near enough to make them competitive with AEW or WWE on any free agent contracts. And if they can't be competitive on free agent contracts, they can't ever become a number 2, because all they're going to end up being able to sign is the offcasts from WWE, the offcasts from AEW, people that didn't cut it at the top for whatever reason. Someone like Mike Santana, who I think is a really good wrestler, very, very good character. Obviously, AEW didn't see him as, a kind of a top single star, so they were willing to not really renew his contract or anything. So he goes to TNA and he looks really good, but he's going to get snapped up by WWE soon anyway. So what are TNA going to be left with when it comes to building their own TV audience? So even if they get the contract, the TV deal, it's not going to be for huge money. To put that into context, they're going to be getting less money than NXT. They're going to be getting significantly less money than AEW. They don't have overseas branding like AEW has, such as what AEW are able to do in the UK. Like years ago, TNA could have fucking owned the UK market. You know, they were there, and they were doing great numbers, but they don't have that purchase at the moment. They don't have that capital in terms of fan engagement. So that's kind of the main thing. The other main thing is Tony Khan's pockets are so deep that he could lose, if he wanted, he could lose 100 million a year on AEW for the next 60 years and still have his yacht, his NFL team, his Premier League football team, and still have all of them. He could lose 100 million a year fighting against WWE and TNA for the next 60 years and still be multi-billionaire. So like TNA are never, even if they're bought by the Fertittas are rich. They're not Shad and Tony Khan rich. Their biggest ever sale was UFC, which sold for $4 billion at the time to Endeavor, but they didn't get all of that. That $4 billion wasn't to them. There was loads of people got payouts to that. Like Dana White got 600 million. The old matchmaker, can't remember his name, he got a few hundred million. So even the Fertittas don't have the pockets to challenge the Khans. Yeah, TNA was really popular on Challenge TV in the UK in the 2000s. Remember, like in the 2000s, they did a couple of shows in the UK, which, that pay-per-view they did in New York there recently, they got 7,000. They kept calling that the North American attendance record because they've done 8,000 in the UK a few times. I think they might have even done 10,000 in the UK at one stage. TNA had, they could have been, if they had moved to the UK, they might actually have been better off and more sustainable in the long term because they had a really good fan base there. TNA is essentially just going to be another feeder system for the WWE main roster from JB. Look, Joe Hendry's going to go there soon. Jordan Grace has already gone there. And I think Mike Santana will probably go there when his contract's up. Fuck, I forgot, Ronan, about the UK reality show. Yeah, remember that? That was such a weird time in wrestling. And look at Shane. Shane was a huge TNA fan. Because they had eyes in this part of the world. Like, you know, they were able to get their product over here with Challenge TV. And at that time, people were desperate for an alternative from WWE. So even Will Ospreay cites it as kind of a major influence on his career. So yeah, I think like the idea that TNA could be a viable number 2 when you actually look at it beyond the surface level, and we could go deeper on that as well, but when you look at it beyond surface level, there is no real viability there. The TV stations that they'll have access to in terms of getting a contract from will be the CW at best, and that will be 10 to 20 million at best. That's at best case scenario 9 times less than what AEW is doing. So they just can't challenge with that. The most important thing, if you want to be a viable alternative to the big companies here, is you need to be able to be competitive in the free agent market when it comes to wrestling contracts. And the money that's been brought in by AEW and WWE means nobody else can be competitive. We even see it with the likes of New Japan. They cannot be competitive. So yeah, let's go on to Britt Baker. Rockstar Spud and Mark Andrews won the boot camp shows. That was so awesome. I never really watched those. I remember bits and pieces of them. I remember seeing Rockstar Spud for the first time and being actually really, I thought like this guy has such a great charisma. Okay, Britt Baker. Where are we at with Britt Baker? So there's a lot of talk last week with AW being in Pittsburgh for Dynamite. Will this be the return of Britt Baker? And I kind of had the idea that if Britt doesn't show up on this week's Dynamite, that probably signals the end of her time with the company. Where are you guys with on that? How do you feel about it if Britt's time with the company is over? You know, in the early days of the AEW run, Britt was the biggest star they had in the women's division. And not only was she the biggest star they had in the women's division, she was one of the top stars they had in the company. She was excellent at doing media. She's a great talker in the ring, really good character. She was excellent as a heel for a time. She was also really good as a face. And they were able to build episodes of Dynamite around Britt Baker. She could pop a quarter-hour rating. She's usually popular, sold tons of merch. I think it's fair to say, and because I think what's going to happen is when she's leaving this company, we're going to get a lot of revisionist history that she was never really that good, or that she was never really that big a star. I think that would be unfair to what she has done. However, sometimes time is up and it's time to move on. I think that's where we are with her for a number of reasons. Ronan says, it seems if you get on Tony's bad side, you were done in AEW with no way back. Has anyone made their way back from being on... MJF didn't... Remember MJF had that... whatever happened that time with when he was getting squashed by Wardlow on Double or Nothing, missed flights and all that stuff. He was really on Tony's bad side there, and he made his way back. But that's MJF. He's like, he is a generational talent in many ways, so maybe that's why. Has anyone else ended up on Tony's bad side and made their way back? Thunder Rosa, but she's never really pushed at a high level. I think that's a really interesting idea, Ronan. Is there a way back for anyone? Because I thought like Britt was really tight with Tony. You know, she had his ear. She was one of those people like MJF, like Hangman at different times. Hangman, actually, people don't realize how bad shit got with Hangman. Hangman was in the doghouse after the CM Punk stuff. And it took a long, like you look at his run up until finally getting pushed again this year. He was in the doghouse and he was on Tony's bad side. And he made his way back. And now he's very much has a major voice within the company again. JB says, in the time I've gotten into AEW, she's been gone, so I haven't seen her. And her matches will probably end up in NXT. I think NXT is the only landing spot for her, for the reason that I don't think she is legitimately works like 4 days a week in her own dentist practice, and I think she really doesn't want to give that up. And in order to do that, it would only work if she was in NXT. David says Punk for a few weeks. Yeah, but Punk many times got back on Tony's good side despite doing a lot of shit to try and probably extricate himself from the company. But you look at like said JB there wasn't around for a lot of Britt's run. Here's my take on Britt. Britt is by no means a bad wrestler. She's also not a great wrestler. Now, she has had some great matches, particularly that unbelievable street fight deathmatch thing with Thunder Rosa. That was legit an incredible match. I think it was the first women's match to main event Dynamite. They tore the house down. Britt got over to a mega degree. As Rowan said there, she was a great top heel. Her face runs never worked. That's true. And then Brian is asking what the heat is between her and Tony. So I think there are legitimate, very heavy rumors about her backstage conduct, rubbing people up the wrong way, being difficult to work with. And like I said, these are rumors, but there's a lot of them, and they're persistent. She gets into a lot of arguments with people, apparently. And there is a story of MJF out there having to pull her aside and have some very pointed words with her about something she had said about someone who was performing on television. And she said it very loud in the locker room. And MJF had to kind of get involved. There was all the stuff about Thunder Rosa where Britt was calling her. Britt was saying things about her being fake injured. Britt feels like the AEW Charlotte Flair. Yes, David. Yes. Really good, but there's something that doesn't click with the fans. Like, things did click with the fans previously. But so then there's a lot of that backstage shit that was going on over time. And more and more and more of it started to come out, but like nothing was ever like super verified. So I'm kind of hesitant to speak on it. I don't want to speak badly about someone when it's basically rumors. But there are rumors out there that she was difficult backstage, difficult to work with, and had caused quite a few arguments or whatever. But then we get to the stuff with, and I think this is really interesting, Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné is on what I think is an exceptional run of pro wrestling matches over the last couple of years. And if you look at the way she structures her matches, she's really smart with that. She always tries to elevate her opponents. Because she knows then that if she elevates the opponent, makes the opponent look really good in the match, that beating that opponent then means more. So that's just Mercedes' style. The one match she had where she didn't make her opponent look good was Britt Baker. That's Mercedes Moné's worst match she's had since she's returned to wrestling post WWE. By far, I would say. By far her worst match. That match was shit on at the time. And it was a really, really bad match, in my opinion. And people were saying that Britt was kind of doing a bit of sandbagging. I don't know if that's true. It could just be a case that Britt can't really keep up with Mercedes. But Mercedes, in the end, kind of beats her very easily. So it's like, okay, maybe there's a bit of heat on Britt here. And you go and have a bad match on pay-per-view with Mercedes Moné. It doesn't really reflect very well on you. So then we fast forward to she's supposed to be working a program with Serena Deeb. And Serena Deeb is a person who within wrestling and within the backstage environment is kind of universally respected. She's seen as maybe not a locker room leader. That's probably putting it a bit too strong. But someone who's been around the business for a long time, is a very good worker, has helped train people. She has a lot of respect from other wrestlers. So Britt is supposed to be going into a program with Serena Deeb, and as Serena Deeb is coming to the ring, Britt starts shouting at the camera, nobody cares, and it felt like a real kind of shoot thing to do, and she got mega heat backstage for it, and that's essentially the last time we've seen her. So I think that felt like the Serena Deeb stuff, because that program just disappeared after that one night. We never saw it again. We never saw Britt again. Serena Deeb went off TV afterwards, and the whole thing was just as if it never happened. But they did the match angle thing that this is the start of the new program. And that appears to be probably the final straw in terms of Britt's time in AEW. Roland says Britt's main strengths were story-wise. While she wasn't brilliant in the ring, she could be great to get others over. Yeah, and she helped build really good stories. And like, getting over in a match is one thing, but like, the reason Mariah May and Toni Storm got over so big was that because the story itself tied up in a great wrestling match, and the story heightened the match, and the match heightened the story. And Britt was very good at the story aspect of that. Ronan also adds there, however, I doubt she'd be happy to be a gatekeeper. I do not think she'd be a gatekeeper. I agree with that totally. And here's the thing. Britt was excellent in the women's division at a time when the women's division wasn't deep and was quite weak. You look at the women's division now, and that thing is deep. And you look at the top of the division in particular, you'd have to say right now, the three top women are Statlander, Mercedes Moné, and Toni Storm. You can decide the order. Probably Toni 1, Mercedes 2, and Stat 3, but Stat is the champion. That's your top 3 stars. Britt Baker isn't in the realms of workers of them. And really, is she on a storytelling level with them? Certainly not Toni Storm. Maybe Statlander, although I doubt it. And possibly Moné. Moné's strong point isn't telling week-to-week stories on television. You look down the card, though. You got Jamie Hayter. You've got Willow. You've got like a whole host of Tekla. You've got Sky Blue. And I don't think Sky Blue's particularly good worker, but she's not totally dissimilar from Britt Baker in that regard. You have Julia Hart, who I don't think is a great worker either, but again, I'd have Megan Bain at this stage way ahead of Britt Baker. They've gotten a super deep division, and in my mind, it's just that the division has moved on beyond Britt Baker, and I think that is essentially why, we've probably seen the last of her in AEW. If you're a Day One fan, that's probably a sad thing. It's unfortunate for something to end like this when there was times when she did some great stuff for the company and was a big star, big merch mover. So yeah, in that regard, it would be sad if that was the end of Britt Baker. But also, sometimes you have to recognize that the division has moved on and she's not really necessary to that division anymore. Despite the fact that she has contributed a lot. I think what's going to happen when she does leave is going to be some revisionist history about her importance to AEW and that division in the early days. I think that would be unfair on her because she kept that division afloat in really bad times. But yeah, unfortunate. Seems that we have the end of Britt Baker in AEW. The announcement of the women's tag team titles. Let's make a little prediction in the chat. Who do you think are going to be the first champions? I'm kind of caught between two minds. I think the first champions are going to be the Triangle of Madness. Some sort of combination there between Tekla, Sky Blue, and Julia Hart. I think they're going to be the first champions. I could also see it being Tay Mello and Anna Jay, because they've been with the company from pandemic times. They've done a lot. I think Tony really likes the two of them. And yeah, I think it's a kind of almost a loyalty thing to give them the first run as the champions. Although I think the pick should be, based on kind of interesting work that I've seen in the last few months, I actually think it should be Penelope Ford and Megan Bain. Penelope Ford is another person who's there early days. She's done a lot of different roles. She's put everyone over. So if it's a you deserve it type thing, she's as Oshin says Anna Jay and Tay Mello. I would say Penelope Ford is very similar to the two of them in that they're all people who started with the company around the same time. And they're people that did put a lot of people over. I just think Anna Jay and Tay Mello is probably the safest choice. However, I would be much more interested to see Megan Bayne and Penelope, because in the tag matches I've seen them do together, they have a really good tandem offense, so like a tag team offense where they do shit together. So yeah, I'd like to see Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford get the first run. But like, there's options there. That's the thing. It's a good time to bring this out. Mercedes Moné wins both. Chebby says, wouldn't that be a tremendous bit? That would be fantastic. I would love that. Athena and Billy Starks would be another good shout. I don't see that happening, but I would like that to happen. I'm going to pick Megan and Penelope because that's who I want to win it, not necessarily who I think will win it, but I'm going to go with my heart over my head here and say AEW Women's first ever tag team champions will be Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. I think the work they've been putting in has been excellent, and they are the most deserving at the minute, although I can see other people getting it as well. They need some face tag teams to emerge, exciting face tag teams. That would help. Okay, people, we have to talk about Nia Jax. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? This keeps happening. This keeps happening. She keeps injuring people. She literally just bashed the head off Jade Cargill and caused a grisly gash. If you go back and look at it, she was way too close to be thrown her like that. She's like, this is just a problem that's going on for years. How many people has she injured, gave concussions to, broke people's noses? Like, I see Chelsea Green coming out in support of her today. I'm like, Chelsea, oh, she's such a nice person, but she keeps injuring her co-workers. Like, everyone gets injured in the ring with her. And, like, look at this match, right? Just look at this match. This is where the WWE Women's Division is at, outside of a select few. Nia Jax has never been a good worker. She had a pretty decent year in 2024, doing her best work, I would say. So Roland says he thinks the botch was Jade's fault. She never put up her hands to protect herself. You could say that. I just think they were too close. In those terms, they were too close to the steps. That should never have been thrown from that close, because it doesn't give Jade the time to put her hands up. But that kind of feeds into the overall point of this match. You have got Nia Jax, who's never been a good or safe worker, despite the fact that she has had some good matches. You've got Tiffany Stratton, who has tremendous potential, but is still green. And who's been elevated into a top spot very, very quickly. Certainly before she's ready. She's also PC trained, which the way, like Triple H has even admitted it recently, we're getting a bigger and better performance center. I'm like, the size of the performance center isn't the issue here, Paul. The issue is the way you teach them to wrestle. They don't get proper reps. Everything they seem to be doing down there is more physical conditioning than learning actually how to wrestle. So you get all these tremendous athletes who can do really cool sequences, but they don't really understand the flow of a match, and they don't understand, like, when this match broke down and they had that fucked up pin spot as well. Total disaster. Like, the ref just stopped counting, and Nia Jax didn't kick out for at least another 3 seconds. Her shoulders were down for 5, 6, 7 seconds. That was bonkers to me as well. And so wrestlers like Tiffany, who are PC trained, who have loads of potential, but not enough reps yet, aren't super comfortable in the ring. They need to be in there with, like, really. Do they still rehearse the matches? The PC, yes, so a lot of matches are rehearsed. I doubt the Ricky Saints Alba Femi match was rehearsed. I doubt a lot of Eaton Page matches are rehearsed. But most matches are still rehearsed, because a lot of these people just don't have the experience. So they put together, and like, you see it with Shawn Michaels now, and his style of booking is they do a lot of three ways. And the idea of that is to protect people and you can do exciting, convoluted spots that you rehearse, and it makes the match look a lot better than it is. That's my problem with NXT in general, is a lot of it feels rehearsed. Brian says, yeah, this trio is such a bad bunch of people to put together. No one's good enough to carry the other two through it. Exactly. I haven't even got to the third one yet, Jade Cargill. And Jade Cargill, Jade Cargill has had, like, at this stage, probably somewhere in the vicinity of, I think, maybe 80 wrestling matches. That isn't a whole lot, particularly when about 45 of them are squash matches. Maybe 50 of them are squash matches. In fact, maybe 60 of them are squash matches. So Jade is working about 4 years now. She's averaging about 20-25 matches a year. That's not a lot. When you look at some independent wrestlers, ones who are kind of in a little bit of demand, some of them are working 6-7 a week. Even lower down, they're working 3-2-3 a week. That's averaging out 100 a year. And it's taken them 3 or 4 years to get really good at this. So you're kind of looking at how many matches does it take for someone to become a really good wrestler? Like super smooth TV wrestler. You're talking 200 or 300 matches. Realistically. There's very few people who were excellent within their first 50, 100 matches. And we're looking at Tiffany Stratton. We're looking at Jade Cargill. Two people with limited experience. And Nia, the experienced one, is someone that we know isn't really a great worker. She started wrestling training in 2018. It looks like she trains once a week. Is that Jade? Jade started training in 2018? Fuck me. If I'm doing something 7 years, I'd want to be significantly better. But the problem is the match time. In hindsight, Jade passing NXT was a big mistake, yeah. Although I just don't know anymore that NXT actually develops people that much. Because again, the good thing about going to NXT for someone like Jade would be they actually do house shows. I think they do at least 1, maybe 2 house shows a week in front of like 150 fans down in somewhere in Florida. That's fine. That's not like a bad thing that NXT only have 150 at a house show in Florida. That's a fucking good thing. Because if you're down the card there, you can get 2 matches a week. And you can get to that 100 match mark in a year. That's super important. Like there's someone that could be working on NXT only house shows for a year, never on TV, and have 100 matches and be way better than Jade Cargill is now because she's only had 80 matches spread out over 4 years, and that person has never been seen on TV. By the time they get to TV, they already look good. So you get this triple threat match, and when I saw the match listed, I was like, ooh, who's going to be the glue here? Because like I said, I think Tiffany has unbelievable potential, but she's not at the stage of her career yet where she can take over and be the glue in a triple threat match like this. The problem is from day one, Jade looked like a star in AEW. Just want to treat her like that, protect her, and not get the reps in. Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's cause like her look being so unique and almost like a perfect professional wrestler look has actually hindered her in some ways because she needed to be treated and pushed like a star, and it has never allowed her to have the type like Jade Cargill has had some good matches, but generally it's when she's in the ring with a really, really good wrestler. The ones that stand out most to me in particular are the Statlander matches. She had 2 matches with Statlander. I thought they were really good. But Statlander, I think, is just a great wrestler. And when she was in the tag team with Bianca, they did some good stuff because Jade could do a really good 3-minute hot tag. And that was perfect for her. Lack of main roster house shows now is not helping them progress either, but better for everyone overall. Yeah, the thing with the lack of... Thanks, JB. The thing with the lack of main roster house shows is by the time you get to the main roster, you shouldn't need house shows to progress. So the lack of them, I think, is great for the people like Cody, like Punk, and all them. Like particularly Punk and Rollins, who's had a lot of injuries, and those guys at the top of the card. They need protection more than anything because they're getting older. They've had injuries. Their bodies might be in the best. They're not. Their bodies just aren't going to be in the condition they were in their early 30s, late 20s. But these guys don't need progression. If you're getting to the main roster and you still need progression, that's what their PC is for. That's what NXT is for. That's what the indie run before that is for. You shouldn't need that by the time you get to the main roster. And they do put a lot of people on the main roster, particularly in their women's division, who aren't quite ready yet. And this match just evolved into almost a dangerous farce, and you had 2 major botches. And we can argue over whether it was Jade's fault or Nia Jax's fault on the Jade getting her head smashed off the thing. You know, you could make an argument there, as Ronan said, that Jade should have got the hands up. She probably should have. I think also Ronan, or not Ronan, you're not at fault, Ronan. Sorry, you didn't bash anyone's head. I also think Nia just started the spot way too close to the steps. The best thing for her was tagging with Bianca. Then she took time off. Yeah, I think there was an injury involved there as well, wasn't there? Yeah, having her tag with Bianca, and I know people wanted to break the team up and have them feud against each other. It's like, slow down. You can do that in a year. Let her do a tag match on TV every week where she does a deadly 4 or 5 minute hot tag and keep building it up and keep building it up. And then let her do the heat sometimes. And let Bianca do the hot tag. And just keep doing that over and over again until in a year's time, maybe she'll be ready for 10-minute singles matches and be able to kind of hold her own, but she's not there yet, unfortunately. And it ends up with a match like this, where everyone came out looking bad. The ref came out looking bad for fucking up the pin spot. Nia came out looking bad for potentially injuring an opponent and not getting her shoulders up for the pin. Jade obviously got her head busted open. Yeah. The kick out botch was hard to watch. Yes, Brian. Like she just started chanting her. She's laid there for Tiffany. I've actually watched it 100 times because I'm trying to figure out, was Jade trying, or was Nia trying to end the match because she knew Jade was injured? What was going on? Like, was she trying to be like, yeah, just do the count and let's get this match over with? But the ref is like, there's 5 minutes left. We need to keep going or whatever, you know? Like, what was the conversations going on there? And then you get the aftermath of that, of going like, well, what do we do now? We don't, like, this thing has happened, and it was just hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. And you feel bad for them because, like, with the exception of Nia, I do still think that Jade Cargill has potential. If booked right and if brought along at the right pace. And I certainly think Tiffany has, Tiffy time has potential. Like, Tiffy's young, very athletic, decent on the character side of things. Tiffany was she was supposed to steal the win from Jade. So she was late doing it, so they stopped the pin. Was that it? But sure, at that stage then, yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing when you put inexperienced people in these matches, you're going to get mistimed spots. You're going to get a lot of mistimed spots. And that's what happened. So, yeah, Tiffy was supposed to break it up. I suppose they were going to the finish directly after that anyway. Yeah, I think I suppose that, yeah, having the wrong person win would have had a major impact on their plans. But yeah, that's wrestling, you know. You tune into Total Extreme Morro on a Wednesday and Vader gets injured. You just have to adapt. It looked like we'll call it in the Ring Brother match with no one good enough to call it in the ring. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Like if you had a Bailey in this match, a triple threat, solid as a rock. If you put Bailey in there with Tiffy and Jade, I guarantee you, everyone would look good. You know, baseline. Everyone, you come out of the match going, yep, good solid match. Because there's someone like Bailey in there to be the glue. Yeah, fucking wrestling's hard, like. But like, Nia Jax has so much experience now that this shouldn't be happening at this stage. Yeah, this is something I thought was interesting. So, Hangman branched off for a few weeks against Don Callis' family. Now he seems to be back in the, what would you call it, the Death Riders verse, the Death Riders universe. I actually think that's a really good pivot because the Death Riders shit and the Ops stuff and the Darby stuff and the Statlander stuff, that's all super hot right now. And by having your world champion off on a different thing that's not as quite as hot, think damages Page's placement on the card. You could go and try and get him to heat up something, but I think you're better off having him within that vicinity of stuff that's hot. I think it'll help his placement on the card, because his placement on the card here was weird. You had show started and he's doing this open challenge type thing, and you're establishing him as a fighting champion. That's all good, but you do want him adjacent to other stuff. And I don't know, like, who's there in the Don Callis family, because I think the Don Callis family are pretty hot. I just don't know if they're world title hot. So who's there for as a challenger for him? Like, I think all the injuries happening has really, Kyle Fletcher. I don't care what Tony Khan says. Kyle Fletcher wasn't the plan for his first pay-per-view defense. Not his first one, his second pay-per-view defense. That was never the long-term plan. It wasn't Kyle Fletcher. That came along after Forbidden Door. And yeah, so getting him back into the hot stuff and having a contender emerge out of there, I think a Hangman Claudio match would be excellent. I think you could even do a Hangman Daniel Garcia thing. So Brian says, what's Hangman's next big defense now? So Claudio, yeah, I'm thinking possibly Claudio. Claudio's been, if you look at the way things have been structured now, Claudio's really been kind of secretly heated up as this like absolute killer. So I think it's been very subtle about slowly heating Claudio up. So I think possibly Claudio could be the next one. Roland says Wardlow is supposed to be the next, apparently. Yeah, that was a rumor going around for sure. That would have made sense. Do you know who I think it should be? I think it should be Bobby Lashley. Here's a guy who has never been pinned, never beaten in singles in the company, has a win over Swerve. There is a tension around him from the fan base in that, is there politicking going on backstage? And I think by putting Lashley against Hangman in a pay-per-view main event, something like Wrestle Dream, something like Full Gear, would create this great atmosphere in the crowd of have MVP and Bobby Lashley politic their way to the world title. And it would really galvanize fans behind Hangman in the building. And I think it'd draw a big number on pay-per-view, because I think there would be a very real fear. So my pick would be Lashley. JB says have Okada drop the belt to Takeshita, move Okada to the world title. I would say yes, but not yet. I think you want to look at that sometime early 2026, February-ish would be, in my opinion, the best time for that. And I think what to do there would be, because I think, and I spoke about this last week, I think there's enough smoke to suggest that Okada and New Japan have sorted things out, because 14th, 15th of October they're doing the King of Pro Wrestling show in New Japan. Takeshita is taking the title for from Zack Sabre Jr. That's obvious. Takeshita's main event in the Tokyo Dome in January. They want a big Japanese star, and he's the only one that they see as a viable big Japanese star at the minute, right? And the political work around that is AEW are putting Takeshita into a program with Okada in the build-up to Takeshita being crowned as New Japan champion, when there's heat between Okada and New Japan for the way he left. I think something has to be worked out, because there's no way New Japan would play ball with that. So I think something's been worked out between Okada and New Japan. I think what we're going to get is actually Takeshita beating Okada in the main event of the Tokyo Dome for the IWGP World title. I think that could possibly tie into, as Brian says there, the Continental Classic final. We'll see how that plays out over the next few months. But so if they're doing that, that would tell me that you have to hold off on pushing Okada to the world title till at least after the Tokyo Dome. And if he loses at the Tokyo Dome, you can't have him lose twice to Takeshita and then go on and beat Hangman a month or two later. You can have him lose once to Takeshita, but not if he loses the Continental Classic final and loses at the Tokyo Dome instead. So I think where Okada is going in 2026, we're going to see a lot of that play out over the next few months in how are they building to an Okada Takeshita match, Tokyo Dome? Is it just going to be an AEW match in the Continental Classic final or something like that? So yeah, it's really tricky politically on how they get Okada through the Takeshita program and into a title program in AEW. So yeah, I want him to be the next champion. I think he's ready. I don't think it's the time to take it off Hangman yet. Hangman's doing a really good job. But yeah, there's just so much political shit going on surrounding Okada and Takeshita and New Japan and AEW's relationship, and that not being as good a relationship as the CMLL one at the moment and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's very much a wait and see. Ron says Takeshita versus Okada for IWGP World Title at Double or Nothing. I think it happens before that. Double or Nothing is May. I think it happens at the Tokyo Dome, Ron. I'm in a what you call that thing? A Discord group with some New Japan fans, and the thoughts in there are that there is something happening behind the scenes, mending the rift that Okada caused when he left to try and potentially have him back, because Tanahashi's retirement, they are really good friends, they're career rivals. There's, that's one of the best rivalries of the 2010s. Like, there's 7 matches there that are just fucking phenomenal. So yeah, let's see how that one plays out. Having the New Japan title and all the ROH titles on AWTV, if someone watches AW for the first time will have no idea what everyone has title. Yes, that's a problem too. That is a problem too. Having that many titles is too confusing. So I think you can have to catch it with the AWGP. But if you're doing that, some of the ROH titles have to be just kept on Ring of Honor for a while. Because there was a stage there a few years ago where I think I counted 13 champions on one show. Like, there's obviously more champions in the company, but I think I've seen 13 title belts on one show on different people. I was like, that's just, everyone's a champion. Everyone has a champion. No one's a fucking champion. Doesn't mean anything. Speaking of champions, what do we think? Ricky Saints, aka Ricky Starks, FKA Ricky Starks, the new NXT World Champion. I'm delighted for Ricky. However, I'm going to give that a caveat. So Ron says G1 winner should be in the title match at Wrestle Kingdom. Feels like Royal Rumble winner cashing it. Yes, and this is the second year in a row they've done that, Ron, which I think isn't good for the G1. But the company has been in a bad place, and it needs a shot in the arm. They need to try things. So I understand it, but then again, there's 2 years in a row where the winner of the G1 has called their shot for before the Tokyo Dome. And yeah, look, I get the logic of I want to carry the title into the Tokyo Dome. But yeah, it just, the winner is like you said, the winner of the Royal Rumble cashed in at a different pay-per-view. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right for the G1. There's been 35 G1s and it's been established as the premier tournament in all of wrestling year on year. It's the most important tournament in wrestling, because it's been treated with reverence for most of its 35-year run. King of the Ring never got that reverence. It did for a couple of years near the start, and then Vince just stopped caring. And the Continental Classic was only a few years old. So, what do you do there? Like with the Continental Classic, that could, in a few years' time, become the premier tournament in all of wrestling. But it has a lot of ground to gain, because the G1 has 35 years of this history and importance built up. So it is, and a part of it, the level of importance has achieved, is that in the mid-2000s they pivoted to the main event, the winner getting the shot at the Tokyo Dome. And they've gone away from that now for 2 years in a row, and I think that's a problem. Definitely a problem. So Ricky Sten's new NXT champion. Here's my thoughts on this. The match against Obafemi was actually really good. I think Obafemi is excellent and has huge star potential. So no doubt they'll make a mess of it on the main roster, and he'll feel like another mid-card guy within about 3 or 4 months. I have no doubt about it that Paul Levesque ain't going to be able to book Obafemi the way he should be booked. Realistically, Obafemi should walk in and truck Brock Lesnar and become your new monster guy. Oshin there says, can't wait to see Obafemi on the main roster now for Triple H to make him the newest El Grande Americano. Would happen. Like, that's not... I think there's a higher probability that he becomes the new El Grande Americano than the new Brock Lesnar. I think that's a higher probability. And that will tell you where I'm at with Triple H's booking. I do not believe in Triple H's booking. On to Ricky Starks. So they've put the title on Ricky Starks. I'm really happy for him. He's the best wrestler they have, probably. However, Ricky Starks should be on the main roster anyway. He should be on the main roster. He doesn't need the NXT title. Like, what does this add to Ricky Starks? And the problem now is it just tells me that he's staying around longer on NXT. He's been main roster ready since before he got there. He should never have been in NXT. It was a step down for him. This guy has had excellent feuds with the likes of Bryan Danielson, with the likes of CM Punk. He's had good tag work. This guy is more than good enough for a key role in the upper mid-card of your main roster, an upper mid-card that is suffering from lack of interest at the moment. Ricky Starks could bring that. He's good enough for it. People saying that Tony Khan fumbled him. Tony Khan didn't fumble Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks wanted to go to WWE. That was his dream. He's friends with Cody Rhodes. Cool. He let him go. Took him off TV for a while first. Fair enough. Brian says, when insult sign him to NXT in the first place, same as Mariah May and Jordan Grace. Yeah, Jordan Grace in particular. They've wasted Mariah May. She came out of the hottest female feud in years. Try to think of probably something Becky Lynch did in around 2019 or something. It's been the hottest female feud since then in all of wrestling. And you stick her in the Performance Center doing crap promos in a stupid program. You've turned her into this generic blonde high school bully, calling Jordan Grace's name. It's so uninspired and boring. She should have come into the main roster hot as shit. That woman she's main evented the Grand Slam show in front of 15,000 people in Australia. She won the title in Wembley Stadium, for God's sake, in front of 50,000 people. She had the Hollywood ending match with Tony Storm in front of 13,000 people at Revolution in an instant classic. And you stick her in playing a mean girl bully in a warehouse to the point that nobody cares about her anymore. Don't even see clips of her promos on Twitter on a Wednesday morning anymore. I don't see clips of her matches. When she arrived there first, when I opened my phone on a Wednesday morning, first thing I seen was Mariah May's latest clip. Same thing with Ricky Starks for months. They mired Ricky Starks also in the mid-card of NXT. So now that because his title run now, his title push feels very rushed. He showed up last week, had a look at the title, thought, I want me some of that. Next week gets title shot, wins title. There was no journey for him. His whole journey had been around the North American title with Ethan Page for months. And they've just thrown together this journey for him, and in 2 or 3 weeks put the title on him, probably because they want to bring Obafemi to the main roster. And realistically, Ricky Starks don't need this title. He should be going to the main roster as well. You could have stuck the title on Javon Evans or someone, He'd benefit from a run with the title. He's a great wrestler, super potential. It's your development show. Give it to a guy who's in development. Ricky Starks isn't in development. He's fully fleshed. You're actually just wasting his time at this stage. And you're wasting Mariah May's time at this stage. Or Blake Monroe. Crap name as well. And you're wasting Jordan Grace's time. She's been great for years. She's not developmental. None of those three names are developmental. And your main roster needs upper mid-card talent now. Now. And they're all down here doing... You know what? I've been involved in a lot of theatre in my life. A lot of student theatre, a lot of amateur theatre, a lot of professional theatre. Watching NXT reminds me of student theatre in the sense that there's a lot of enthusiasm, but it just kind of looks crap. And there's no one for him to feud. So Ron said there's no one for him to feud with that feels like a legit contender. Yeah, a lot of that roster isn't hot. But a lot of the main roster isn't hot either, though. Yeah, it's a company that has real trouble, more than anything, real trouble building babyface contenders. Real trouble with it. Obafemi answering Sami Zayn's open challenge. That would be a great way, JB, to debut Obafemi, because Sami's very good at generating sympathy anyway. And like, Sami's one of these guys, I've said it loads of times. You can beat Sami, and it'll never hurt his perception for a couple of reasons. Because of his tenure, and because of how good he is. If you beat him, and it does happen to hurt his perception, he'll get it back because he's just that good. He's a generational talent. He's one of the best all-around wrestlers of the 21st century. And actually probably one of the most important wrestlers in terms of influence of the 21st century. Sami Zayn. So he could come in. Obafemi should possibly come in and truck Sami Zayn, because Sami will then turn that into a real interesting story of redemption, because he's done it 5 times and it's worked every time. He's really good at it. That would be a deadly way to do it. Jordan Julius definitely going to NXT while right, Ron has a fantastic point there. They bring in Jordan Grace, Julia, Stephanie Baker into NXT, and Jade goes the one that goes to the main roster. If that doesn't tell you where this company's head is at, I don't know what does. Because Stephanie had just had that classic with Mercedes Moné. I think one of Mercedes' best matches of this current run. Both of them came out of it looking like stars. And Julia, the most I was ever into Stardom is during Julia's last run. And when I'd heard she was going to WWE, I was gutted, because I really wanted AEW to go for her. Now, AEW didn't even make a play for her, but that was back when Rossi Ogawa was running running Stardom, and as it turned out, Rossi had kind of a secret deal with WWE going on, and Rossi was ousted from Stardom, and he opened up Marigold, and Julia went and did the first few Marigold shows to try and get that promotion off the ground. As it turns out now, Marigold is kind of haven't panned out there. Rossi Ogawa is a fucking creep, so who cares? But yeah, the most I was ever interested. I'm kind of getting back interested in Stardom again now, because I think Momo Watanabe's doing great stuff. Saya Kamatani is doing immense work. She's another person who's in that mystical Wrestler of the Year conversation for the stuff she's doing, both in terms of match quality and being a major draw. But yeah, I loved Julia's run in Stardom. I really got interested in Stardom in that time period. And I was hoping she'd go to AEW, but I still thought, like, if you look at how WWE in recent years have booked their Japanese female talent, they've been booked really well. Io Sky this year, Asuka. Honestly, here's a question for you. Asuka and Finn Balor, both main roster debuted around a similar time. Which one of those is more deserving of a Hall of Fame induction for their WWE only runs? I think that is a tremendous thought piece. Who's had a better run in WWE, Balor or Asuka? Asuka has been booked excellently all through the years. Fumbled the ball big time with Julia, lost every bit of momentum she had. Hopefully to be able to turn that around. Yeah, they need to just kind of let her be her. They just need to let her go out there and beat the shit out of people. They're already letting Nia Jax do it. They may as well let her do it. So Ronan says it's Asuka hands down. I agree with you, Ronan. We're Irish guys. We want it to be Finn. But I think Asuka's run over 10 years in WWE is phenomenal. Here's another one for you, because there's another guy who debuted in a similar time frame. Who has had a better run, Asuka or AJ Styles? Can I do a poll in this chat? Start a poll. Is that making loads of bad sound? I always wanted to do a poll, actually. I need a mod. Start poll. Asuka or AJ Styles? I think that's a great question. Where was... I love Finn, but Asuka, Mr. Snub says, thanks, Mr. Snub. I can never get your name right. It's crazy that Balor can have a career in WWE's had and still kind of be seen as disappointment, because that's yes. Balor's run has been very forgetful. He's had a few good years, but in general, so if we look at this, the poll is saying Asuka slightly. Asuka over AJ slightly, including NXT run. Asuka unbelievable. Mr. Strump said Balor has been wasted. To be honest, there's been some wasted years in there. There's been a lot of wasted years in there. He's had some good years, but there's been a lot of wasted years. But looks like Asuka's winning the poll over AJ. Can someone tell me, did the sound? Oh no, it's even. Asuka and AJ are even on this run. He needs away from the Judgment Day ASAP. Yeah, I think Balor's getting to the edge now where he needs one more signature singles run. He's done great stuff with Judgment Day. Super helpful for people like Dominic there. Super helpful for JD McDonough. But I think for him, he needs one more big singles run. And yeah, so Ricky Sten's he's a great choice. If he's staying in NXT, he's a great choice for champion. It'll give him more mic time. He'll do really good work. But he should be on the main roster. So Ronan also said Asuka was a foreigner able to get over when Vince was booking. That is very, very true. That was very hard for a long time. Mr. Snub said the small appearance in NXT had more life in it than his run since 2022. That, he felt like he was let off the leash when he went back to NXT that time. It's like, this is the guy that, why don't we see this guy in the main roster? Would love a final face run for him now, yeah, or even a much more quieter, despicable heel run. But either one, the highlight of Balor's past couple of years was the OTT match with JD. Yeah, that match, I was there, loved that match. So it's such a blast watching that match. I think Ron, were you in the same row as me? I think you were. I think you were a few seats down during the JD Balor OTT match against Social Elite. Brian says the NXT appearance just made me more sad. Is that because you kind of realised what we were missing on the main roster? What we weren't getting? Because that's how I feel about it. Finn has to dethrone Dom. I would love that. Turn on him, become the biggest prick in the world, because Dom is getting babyface reactions at times now. I think there's money in a Dom face run soon. The one thing that is unforgivable about it is how badly they nuked the demon. They nuked the demon. Ruined it. Now I know in his current character he shouldn't use the demon, but they have to do one more demon run. Jeez, JB, if you're flying over, well, I know you have big events coming up in the next few weeks, but let us know if you're flying over for another OTT show and we'll go for pints beforehand. Ronan was beside me when he was sober. I wasn't sober. Yeah, no, it was the local rumble. You were a few seats down. You were beside me for the JD and Finn match. I wasn't sober whatsoever. I had a great time. NXT was, here's what you could have had. Yeah, Mr. Snub on the ball. And then I think the final topic for tonight is we are getting one of Cena's last matches now will be the AJ Styles match. And to me, that feels totally right. You were also sober that night, JB. all these people going to wrestling shows sober. What? Would never be me. Although no, I did go to my last OTT show in July. I didn't drink that night because I drove up Dublin and back. And no, I did look up hotel prices in order to stay up there and have a few drinks. But then when I seen the prices, I was like, nah, I'll just drive. It was like €275 for like the cheapest room in Dublin. Nah. So we are getting AJ and Cena in one of Cena's last matches. And to me, this is only right because really, I think Cena Styles SummerSlam 2016, was it 16 or 17? Is, I think it was 16, is one of John Cena's best ever matches. And I think it was one of the best WWE matches of that decade. I love the big lie WWE making the fans feel like they're the ones who got the AJ match. It's such bullshit. Such bullshit. It's this whole thing again of telling stories and working the audience, blah, blah. Triple H has no, he has 3 or 4 tricks and he has to use them over and over again. You guys asked for it, the fans asked for it. We do what the fans want. Fuck off. This was in the books. They just didn't have enough TV space to build to it after the Cena Brock match. Jeffy was drinking 6 million, barely recall being at the event. Jesus Christ, that's an early start. Like, I think I started drinking pints at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the day, and I was pretty bad. I can't even remember what's episode. I can remember bits of the match. I remember having a great time. Brian says, loved seeing Cena throwing Triple H under the bus on Twitter like you guys were talking about in WWE Power Struggle episode. Cena has been immense in terms of throwing Triple H under the bus at every opportunity during this final run. The guy just doesn't give a shit. It's sensational. And look, like, I think I'm really happy we're getting the match. I think it's ridiculous the way it's come about. I think it's Triple H just going into his very, very shallow bag of tricks, and try and make the fans feel like they have a voice. And this is happening at a time where they're doing this because a lot of the fans are pissed about the Brock Lesnar stuff. A lot of fans are pissed about the Saudi stuff. So this is their way of saying, we're listening. We'll give you the match you want. They won't take Brock off TV. They won't say no to putting WrestleMania in Saudi. But we'll give you your match because we listen to our fans. That's the mentality here. And I hate that that's how this match has come about. However, I'm happy we're getting the match because it'll be one of Cena's best matches, I think. Now, it won't be anything like the match 10 years ago. Well, it probably will be, actually, because that was a finisher spam anyway, but a deadly finisher spam. And also, it felt like AJ was super hot coming in. Obviously, AJ is not going to be that hot now. And AJ beating Cena felt massive. The New Japan guy, the TNA guy coming in and beating Cena. Yeah, and obviously, you know, AJ's coming towards the end as well. He says next WrestleMania will probably be his last. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this match, actually, tremendously. But yeah, I just think it's important to note that the way they've booked this is so that they can say, we listen to our fans at a time where the fans are in uproar over WrestleMania going to Saudi and Brock Lesnar being on TV. I know some fans will defend the Brock Lesnar thing. Whatever, if that's your thing. I don't know why you'd said that out loud. There is no defending it. But this is their way of trying to tend. And I don't know, should we speak about the Paul Heyman promo? About the comments with Brock Lesnar, rumors and innuendo stuff. Paul Heyman's such a gigantic piece of shit. We've known that for decades at this stage. I didn't even want to talk about it because it's grimy, it's horrible. It's another way of this company trying to control the narrative. It's trying to downplay the Janelle Grant thing as if it's nothing when it's in fact humongous, and Brock Lesnar is named in a sex trafficking lawsuit 44 times. Let's never let them forget that. So yeah, like, fuck Paul Heyman. Such a horrible piece of shit. And he's not even that good of a manager. I know I've said that on the other show. And people are like, he's not that good. He hasn't. Well, he has had some tremendous years. He's a carny, as Ron says. He is a carny. He's an old school wrestling carny, and there is place for some of those guys in the business. When you go out there and you defend that kind of thing on TV and you try and control the narrative of that kind of thing, sickens me. Rowan says we have to get AJ Balor one more time before he finishes. I think Balor should be AJ's last match, whenever that is. If it's WrestleMania, it should be Balor versus AJ. I know they don't have like this super deep history, but there is like this connection between them. They feel like guys who tread a similar path to get to where they got to. I think it would be a great way for AJ to go out. I think Balor should be his last match. Look, I know you might want to put over a younger talent like a Braun Breaker or a Dominic or something like that. Put over a guy who's in their 20s, but you don't have to do that with every retirement. You know, who's going to be Cena's last match? Who will be Cena's last match? I think Gunther. Is Cena a bit like Sting in the sense that sometimes someone who with their legacy should actually win their last match? I think there's something to be said for that with Cena. I think ending, because you've done him getting killed by Lesnar now, so him getting killed by someone else doesn't really mean as much. So actually, I think you should have Cena go over in his last match. I've just talked myself into that. Dominic Mysterio IC title match would be great. But the fact that he's already got killed by Brock Lesnar now kind of makes me think he should win his last match. Do you think he should win that match, JB? I hope Gunter could be Dominic. Gunter should retire him and then Gunter should truck Lesnar. But they've signed Lesnar to a mega contract for the next few years that they're not going to have anyone truck him. Because they're going to be paying him for like 10 million a year for 3 years to do 5 matches now, 4 matches, whatever it's going to be. They're not going to risk that investment to have Gunter truck him, but that's what should happen. 100%. JB says, no, Dom shouldn't be, or Dom should beat Cena, yeah. I'm starting to think that because of the way he lost to Lesnar, anyone who else beats him now, it doesn't mean as much. So therefore, just feed him someone in his last match and let him win the fucking thing. It might be Gunter, but I was thinking Cena's last match should have been Melo or Breaker and a pass on the torch where the franchise sets up the future. Yeah, I'm game for that as well. In that case, I'd go Dom or Braun. I'd love if it was Melo, but there's no point in even thinking about that because Triple H ain't going to book that. I would have done with more belts than Mercedes, so I'd love that. Saudi will pay money for Cena's last match against Goldberg and Taker, a triple threat. Goldberg versus Fatal 4-Way. No, actually, I have a better one. Remember he did the Iron Man match. Did he do an Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels? I would love that. Ron says Cena beats Shane and gets a hug. Vince McMahon on a pole match. It feels like no one can live up to the hype. Yeah, it does. It feels like they don't have anyone there. I can't do Cody again. They've done that already. I don't know who Cena's last match should be. I did think it should be Gunter and that Gunter should truck him. But then they had Lesnar truck him, so, you know. Yeah, David has a good point there. Gunter also squashed him in the Mania match. Lesnar and Gunter, both men who squashed Cena. I would love that. However, I think with Lesnar signing a new mega contract, they're not even going to have wouldn't have Gunter beat him at WrestleMania. Gunter should never lose to Lesnar. So I don't want that to happen unless Gunter's trucking Lesnar. That would be amazing. Matt Cardona dressed up as Edge. Yeah, people online saying Edge, because Edge did cut that angle where he's leaving AEW for a while. People are like, he's leaving to go and wrestle Cena and Cena's last run. No, he's not. He's under contract. Good grief. People say anything. Matt Cardona. No, I just think it's funny if Matt Cardona never gets the WWE call, despite the fact that he wants it so much. Matt Cardona would do anything to be seen as last opponent, 100%. Travis Scott sponsored by Dude Wipes and Slim Jim. I'd love that, JB. Travis Scott won't be back in WWE anytime soon. He hates them now. I don't know why, don't know what happened, but they've had a big fall now. David has always seen Gunter as the new Lesnar. Yeah, it should be positioned exactly like the new Lesnar. They don't need Lesnar because they have Gunter. They just haven't pushed Gunter right and haven't had opponents ready for Gunter. Gunter is awesome, but they haven't treated him as Lesnar, so he'll never be Lesnar. But he's right there, and he's better than Lesnar ever was. Go with the guy. Okay. Another great. I went an hour and 24. This is getting ridiculous. An hour and 25. Went an hour and 42 last week. The file was nearly too big to put onto, what's the other one? Spotify and Apple and all them podcasting platforms. But thanks very much for all the engagement. This was tremendous fun as always. We'll be back next Monday night. I'm delighted the sound is better. We have our new pod up there now that me and Shane did, looking back over AW's first ever Dynamite, where all the stars are now. It was really fun to look back and see some of the names and what's changed in that time frame. And people like Cody going on to main event WrestleManias and stuff. So that was great fun. That's out on the channel now. Total Extreme Morro is coming Wednesday. I think a banger of an episode because I'm really scrambling to try and make things make sense after the Vader injury. I'm booking the tournament. I'm the Ric Flair of the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show, doing nightly Broadway's run. Or the Okada, I'll take Okada either. The Optimist snub by a Total Extreme Morro coming Wednesday, this tonight, and the me and Shane one is up as well. And I think the boys might have an OTT Insider coming soon. Keep an eye out for that. And if you're going to the 11th anniversary, let me know. I'm going to the 11th anniversary in Dublin on the 25th of October. So if you're going to be there, OTT 11th anniversary, let me know that as well. Thanks very much, everyone. And I'll see you all next week, hopefully. Good luck.